Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our backstage event on entrepreneurship. Really eager to have this panel. It's with four great people from four great schools offering outstanding entrepreneurship programs for their MBA students. And we're going to talk about what it will be like to actually go to school and do one of two things. Go to graduate school and actually use your experience to incubate a business, number one. And number two, even if you don't want to start a business, why you can go to an MBA program and leave with an entrepreneurial mindset that would allow you to do entrepreneurial things throughout your life, no matter what environment you're in, whether you're in a big, massive company, an early stage company, whether you're an employee at a startup. How to do things with less, how to be nimble, how to prototype ideas and products and services quickly. Just the basics of becoming effective in the world of work. That's really what entrepreneurship and innovation is all about. And we want to really talk about the nitty gritty of how business schools teach entrepreneurship and innovation today. And really what it means. Schools have invested lots of money in this field in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Some of the biggest investments in graduate management education have been in the field of entrepreneurship and innovation. And the schools are doing some really incredible things, and we're going to get into that right now. So let me introduce to you first our panel from Washington University's Olin Business School, Ruthie Piles, who is the Associate Dean of Graduate Enrollment Management. Welcome, Ruthie.
Thank
We
you.
have from Babson, Colleen Hines, who is the Director of Graduate Admissions. Welcome, Colleen.
Thanks
We
for having
have
me.
from Madrid, Spain. Beautiful place. Love it. IE Business School's Allison Holmes, who is actually not in Madrid, but in LA.
Yes, Madrid by LA, yes.
The school in North America. She's director of the LA office and global markets. And then from Rice University in Texas, Janice Kennedy, who's executive director of recruiting and admissions. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
So let's kind of start with, the real basics. Tell me a little bit about your approach to entrepreneurship in your MBA programs and how it all plays out. Why don't we start with Colleen?
Sure, thanks, John. And I think your opening is a good segue into Babson's approach to entrepreneurship. I think we all see a framework shift in that entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business anymore. It really is about that entrepreneurial mindset. How do you drive innovation? And Babson has been the #1 entrepreneurship school on the US News and World Report for 27 consecutive years. And for us, it's really within that entrepreneurial mindset framework. It's about driving innovation, helping students to seek opportunities where other students would see obstacles, and really understanding how to empower them to make change, to take iteration 1, test, and then move quickly to iteration 2. And it's really that adaptability and that approach to any business challenge as an entrepreneur would approach it that really is the driving force at Babson, and about creating that kind of innovative entrepreneurial leadership and framework when you have it there. So for us, we'll talk, I'm sure, all of the panel today a lot about that difference and how our programs can not only kind of help that true entrepreneur startup mentality and kind of the accelerators and frameworks there, but also how schools can kind of drive an innovative mindset in a larger global context, social context, or even within a smaller business organization.
Yeah, I like to say that all of life is about getting stuff done.
Absolutely.
And what you're teaching with an entrepreneurial mindset is how do you just jump over the hurdles, the challenges that are ever present in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because getting stuff done is really getting around the hurdles or jumping over them, figuring out how to keep moving forward, regardless of the challenges in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really at the core of teaching entrepreneurship and innovation. Ruthie, What you
Sure.
say out there in St. Louis?
Well, I would say that very much like our city, which is the gateway to the West, we've been welcoming entrepreneurs to our doorstep for decades. I would say when I think about what makes our program really unique is very much reflective of our city. It's about interconnectedness and connectivity, right? But it's also about the intention behind that connectivity. So we really place a lot of efforts in really understanding how the courses and the curriculum really intersect and connect in order to help people think differently, right? To change perspectives, to really challenge new ways of thinking. It also starts with an incredibly diverse cohort. One of the things that's important for us is to ensure that there's a lot of different perspectives at the table, so that those classroom discussions can be very rich, so that the faculty can really draw on those unique perspectives, and that students can really grow and be challenged in that space, because obviously that's where new ideas come from. They come from conflict. They come from different ideas, a different way of looking at things. And so we really try to create a community and a collaborative community that really does talk about the intersection of values in economics, or the intersection of values in data, or the intersection of local and global, right? And how those things really intersect. So for us, it's really about connectivity, both on our campus and in our community.
Yeah, I would say too that one of your core themes that is woven throughout your entire MBA curriculum, along with things like globalization, is in fact entrepreneurship innovation. So you're getting that in every single course that you take at Olin.
Absolutely.
Janice, at Rice, you have the single biggest entrepreneurship contest. I'll call it a contest. It's a competition for new business ideas. The amount of prize money in it is unbelievable. It's gone up over the years. Just tell us how much it is.
Well, let's see. Over the last 10 years, I think it's about one. Is it? Oh my gosh! It just left me.
It's well over $1 million.
$1 million each year. So I was going through. But what I like about it is that there's competitions, and that's how we learn. And we do case competitions. Every school does this, but this is real world stuff. So the private equity, the angel investors are there, and this is business. This is happening lifetime. So the fantastic nature of getting ready for it, I'm in school, whatever, is one piece of it. To walk away with 20,000, 60,000, however much dollars to go forth in your endeavor is huge.
Yeah. And, I think what you're going to see as we get into the programming elements, of course, there are going to be courses that will actually literally teach you how to develop a business plan. There are going to be courses that actually lead to an actual startup. There are courses that are going to be telling you and explaining how you innovate in a large company environment. There are contests and competitions to give you seed money. There are mentors and coaches and serial entrepreneurs that are connected to these programs so that they're side by side with you as you create something new and different. And many of these programs are interdisciplinary. You're not going to only work with other business school students. You're going to work with people from different areas, different disciplines who bring in different ideas to make a business happen. Now, Allison, IE has created a reputation in Europe for being one of the most entrepreneurial business schools there is. What's at the heart of that reputation, do you think?
Well, our founders, the founders of the school, we were founded by a group of entrepreneurs. So it's literally in our DNA at IE. That concept of looking at entrepreneurship from several different angles, whether it be, traditional entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. These are all areas that students get exposed to through our program. And just being on campus at IE, as you mentioned before, of course, we have specific classes that are focused on how to develop a business plan, but you get that exposure to that mindset in every class that we take. And through our programs, you're able to get exposure to not only a very culturally diverse student body that's going to challenge the way you think, with over 130 different nationalities represented on our campus, but also a very professionally diverse network as well. because you're through our incubator, through our different workshops, you're able to work with students from all of our different master's programs, and be able to understand how to look at problems from different perspectives. So
Great. Let's talk about, let's stay with you, Allison. What are the most important programming elements at your school that make it such a great training ground for would-be entrepreneurs and, frankly, for people who go into mainstream jobs but want to be more entrepreneurial?
yeah, so I mean, one of the great things about our program is one of our core courses is entrepreneurial management. So every student that goes through our program has to go through that process of creating a business plan. So they understand that process. They understand that process of ideation and failing quickly. And then we also have a big component of our program is flexibility. So you have our lab 5-week lab period in the middle of the program where you can choose the startup lab. If you want to go through the traditional startup route, you can choose that lab. Social impact lab, you can do that to have a more impact focused entrepreneurial endeavor. And then you have our business impact lab. You also have our startup incubator on campus, our venture lab that you can apply to, where you're provided a mentor, an experienced mentor in the field of entrepreneurship. So there's lots of different ways that students can explore this idea of entrepreneurship in its different facets.
Yeah, I like all the support. It's like you're in a little cocoon, and it's a laboratory for yourself.
Exactly.
And you have all these support services, all these ideas, all these frameworks, all these people who are rooting for you to make something happen. It's something you will not experience, let me just tell you, almost anywhere else in the world.
Place to fail.
Because the cocoon is not a bubble. The cocoon is an enveloping of support and encouragement. Janice, what are the key programming elements in your program?
Well, you mentioned some of them. It's that, well, I'll just say it like you said, the cocoon. I believe people come into this ecosystem whereby the faculty are founders. They have deep, rich experience. We find that people who come in and have already started a bit of their journey as an entrepreneur will step back and go, okay, let's pause, let's think strategically. And they'll use some of the interdisciplinary classes, the workshops, the speaker series, everything in the ecosystem that says, I need to know the challenges of a founder that I may not have even considered. And I need to get ahead of it with the support of everything I'm going to learn from that. When you think about also having that entrepreneur mindset in a large company, the disruptors that are out there are the entrepreneurs. So you go work for a Fortune 5 company and you need to know who's on your heels. So I agree with what everyone has said, is that entrepreneurship is woven through, or should be woven through, how we see business, period.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Allison, you mentioned something I'm going to come back to, and Janice, you just mentioned something I'm going to come back to. Let's go to what Allison said first. She used the word social impact and the fact that IE has a social impact lab. And I should make clear that, when we talk about entrepreneurial activity, we're not only talking about business today, or business in the more conventional sense that how we would describe it. Many of the ventures that are coming out of business schools, or that are being launched by MBAs 5 years later, 10 years later, are organizations that have a social mission, that have a purpose to try to improve community, improve society, improve our world. And they might be tackling a big social issue like clean water or poverty or education. And so when we talk about entrepreneurship in this business school arena, we're talking about the entire opportunity to create new and different things that help people. That's one aspect of what we're speaking about. The other thing I'm going to talk about is a word that Janice mentioned, disruption. A quarter century ago, that word wasn't even in the business literature. And today we speak daily about how incumbent businesses are disrupted by small startups that have virtually few, if any, resources. This is the classic David and Goliath story that is played out day after day after day for the past quarter of a century in the world that has led to untold innovation and productivity. Now, Ruthie, talking about the ecosystem, what I really like about the Olin involvement in entrepreneurship is how the school has become an integral part of the entire St. Louis metro area and what's happening there in developing new ventures and new ideas. Talk a little bit about that and how that is an important programming element in your school.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. So there's a wide range of initiatives that happen in the St. Louis community, and I'll kind of focus on two, and then talk a little bit about how they funnel into what we do as well. So one of the most prominent hubs of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship is our Scandalera Center. The Scandalera Center is a great place for real world venture specific skills training. It provides access to funding. It's really a great way for the community at large to really come together and get behind a lot of these efforts. It's an incredible place and a lot of really great things happening. In addition, we also have a great, much like our colleague over at Rice, we have Arch Grants, which is a St. Louis-based organization that really funds big ideas and puts a lot of that funding that is really necessary in order to get a lot of these ideas off of the ground. So, many of our students will work interconnectedly with these organizations in order to drive those innovative ideas. We also then funnel that back to campus, where we have quite a few campus-based projects that really do kind of create that structure and kind of can harness those ideas in a very positive way. So we have Olin's Big Idea Bounce, which is kind of a 2-minute pitch where these students can compete for $15,000 towards this new pitch and this new idea. We do have the Whole Camp Seed Fund, which is in honor of one of our former faculty members that puts $1,000 towards moving to action. And then, of course, yes, we do have the formalized courses. One of our most famous is actually the Hatchery course, which is a place where students can really formalize and put some structure around these ideas to kind of drive those efforts home. But I think, once again, back to your point, John, this is really about us connecting with the St. Louis community. That's really where a lot of our strength lies as a school and as a city.
Great. Now, Colleen, one of the interesting things to me about Babson is that you, from the very beginning, struck out as a school of entrepreneurship. So it's been in your DNA from day one. How did that happen, and how does it manifest itself today?
Yeah, we just celebrated our centennial last year, which was really exciting. Thankfully, it happened in 2019 and not 2020, so that we could have a lot of in-person events. But yeah, John, it is in our mission. It's in our DNA, we like to say too, and in that our mission is preparing and empowering entrepreneurial leaders who create, grow, and steward sustainable economic and social value. So to your point, that kind of focus, as Allison has said as well, on a social impact piece, not just an economic piece, and in an ideal world, how those two things can really converge. And I think for us, it's really showcased in our program. And as Ruthie said, and kind of the classes that you can do, and having entrepreneurship really woven throughout the curriculum is really a hallmark of the program. A flexibility component is really crucial. We have about 2/3 of our MBA curriculum as elective choice that's open across the portfolio. And so today we're really talking about MBA in terms of how do you take kind of strategic growth through an innovative mindset, but we also have a master's in entrepreneurial leadership program for students who are newer to the job market, who might not be ready for the strategic approach, but might really want to drive innovation at a more individual contributor level. And it's how those groups are really interconnected at an elective scale. And then from the overall programs, I think that's where the centers really come into play. So things like the accelerators and that sort of thing. But I think the thing we're most happy about in this second century is that we recently received a $50 million gift from an alum, Arthur M. Blank, who's a co-founder of the Home Depot and owner of the Falcons, as we don't mention in Boston, but other people know him for. But that was a really a generous gift. And with that gift, it really allowed us in our second century to say that growing entrepreneurial leadership and really showcasing that mindset globally is really a hallmark of the program and really the goal for us as an institution moving forward. And so different schools and centers are really emblematic of that piece. We have a blank center that has a beta challenge for a $20,000 prize fund. And we have a women's accelerator housed in our Center for Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership, as well as a newly launched Black Women's Entrepreneurial Accelerator. And for that, again, it's just looking at from a social lens where there might be disparities, especially in venture capital funding, and where can we really use some of our new funding to really double down and help grow that and really start to create a more impactful strategic focus. And I see my colleagues all nodding because I think that's such a crucial part when we talk about social innovation lens, to see what causes we really can all as thought leaders make sure we're really focusing on to leverage and to continue to grow.
Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Arthur Blank and knowing him a little bit. I'm glad to hear he gave you such a big chunk of change.
We were happy to. He was on campus last week, which was really, really nice. So we were so happy to welcome him.
So let's go to some storytelling, okay? Now, along with our big project on entrepreneurship, we do a piece that I find really fascinating. It's the most disruptive MBA startups to come off campus in the last year or two. And those are really all great stories of people who saw a need in the marketplace, who responded to the need with an innovative solution, and were able to use the resources of a school to get their startup moving. So I'm wondering if you could tell us, one or two stories of recent grads, could be any time in the last 5 years, that's kind of inspiring, motivating, that puts a smile on your face, Colleen.
I actually had a smile on my face when I thought about them, and I didn't even mean that. Because I think it might have been Janice, so I don't want to take your line, but when you said it, I thought it was really impactful that this is not just about creating social change on a global scale. That's super important. But sometimes it's what you can do in your community. And if we can create, exactly. And if we can make impacts in communities, then overall, I think that helps globally. And so I think Babson itself, our probably most famous kind of social impact entrepreneur, are the founders of Bombas Socks. I see their commercials all the time. And, they, for every pair of sock that you buy, they give a pair of socks. And that's a global company with 40 million items donated. And so that's a really larger scale. But the one that made me smile is one more short-term community scale, which is a restaurant called Rail Trail Flatbread Company in a town maybe 45 minutes from Boston in Massachusetts, founded by two MBA alums who met in class who had no interest in going to be restaurateurs. But what they were looking for was a social innovation project. And they discovered this town that had kind of stalled in terms of economic growth, and they wanted to do something cool in the town. Now they have 3 different restaurants on the block. They hire people in the town to work. It's really started to create an ecosystem in the town that has jobs and people actually visiting. This is pre-pandemic, so maybe not visiting as much now, but I just think it's such a cool story because it showed something they weren't interested in, and they always talk that the MBA really helped them because they would never have picked that town, except in doing their MBA they started to learn all of the things that you don't learn unless you're really approaching graduate school, like looking at the market, looking at population. Where are people? Where is there an opportunity to actually make an impact? How much money would we actually need to actually do this? And so they were able to, instead of failing in person, kind of test the waters in the program and actually launch it. So I'm so impressed with all that they've done.
That's great. And Bombas Socks, isn't that the company that says we make the most comfortable socks in the world?
They do say that. I think they're pretty comfortable. If I do, they were on Shark Tank, so they.
Ruthie, tell me a couple of stories about your alums.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So I think with ours, you'll see that there is, once again, very similar to my colleague at Babson, lots of diversity amongst, where these students have really found their niche or found their place. The first person that comes to mind is Byron Porter, who started Hum Industrial Technology. That's really about the chain industry and using vibration analysis to gauge things like maintenance issues, predict shipments, and help with safety. So that's a really fun one. I loved that he called it Hum Industrial Technology.
Great.
Megan Berry, she's started a company called By Reveal. It's a pop-up micro boutique that basically helps both established designers as well as emerging designers kind of find a place to display some of their work, which I thought was really awesome. I think she started that in the hatchery class that I talked about a little bit earlier.
Wow.
And then Ken Mao is actually working on a subscription-based meal delivery service for corporate health and wellness initiatives. So, just a lot of different things that students are doing. And it's just so exciting to see how they've taken these ideas and really pushed them forward.
Terrific. Janice, I'm sure you have great stories to tell.
Yes, I do. Well, I'm going to tell you, since 2010, we've had 612 ventures that raised $4.8 billion.
Wow.
So when Entrepreneurship, Entrepreneur Magazine, and they are Entrepreneurs, says that we're number one, it feels great. So that's been fantastic. But just a couple of alumni examples. Abby Donnell comes to mind. She started Work and Mother in 2017. She was a 2017 graduate. And what she did is she equips workplaces for the new mom that helps the company meets the requirements, but also supports the mothers for nursing and prepping and having a place to go, safe and comfortable to go take care of being a new mom. So that's a good one. Sterling Medical started in our healthcare innovation enterprise entrepreneurship course and was successful in adding AI to medical devices. And when you live in the largest healthcare area in Houston and the city of Houston, it's really a perfect combination for those healthcare entrepreneurs to roll that kind of stuff out as well.
Okay, that's fantastic. Allison.
Yeah, I mean, the one that comes to my mind is one that I feel like is super relevant for the times that we're in, and I feel really passionate about this cause. So Hethel Johnny, she's one of our global online MBA recent graduates. She founded an organization called Speak Mentorship that helps to develop the social and cultural capital of immigrant girls by teaching them leadership skills, how to speak in public, allowing them to be as ready for for college and wherever they want to go after that, to be the next leaders. It's an amazing organization that has expanded to work with inner city public schools from New York to DC to Philadelphia, and is having an incredible impact in an area where it's desperately needed.
Now, what I love about these examples, and let's just step back from them for a moment to point out something that I think is very important. The variety, the diversity, the remarkable breadth and depth of the ideas that all of you have spoken about is sort of mind-blowing, right? We have artificial intelligence for medical devices. We have socks in restaurants. We have a mentorship company organization for immigrant girls. We have industrial technology that affects the supply chain, pop-up boutiques for emerging designers, subscription-based meals. I mean, it's remarkable that MBAs are coming out with all these different ideas in all these different fields and all these different industries, making stuff happen. Getting back to what I say, what is life about? Making stuff happen. Okay, I want to point out one thing to everyone who may or may not know that, generally only 5% of MBA graduates on average start companies while in a program or as they're graduating. That number increases as they get out and they gain more experience, often in mainstream jobs. Many MBAs, in fact, start side businesses while they're consulting or doing banking or working as product managers in tech companies. Now, some of the schools represented here are well above the average of 5%, which is why they're standout organizations in terms of teaching and inculcating entrepreneurial skill sets into their graduates. But that gives you a sense of the sort of the fact that most MBAs obviously do not start businesses. So teaching them how you become more effective in larger organizations and act like an entrepreneur instead of a bureaucrat is a key part of each of these programs. Now, obviously, to be able to do this, you got to get in. So I want to talk a little bit about, your class makeup, the diversity of it. What are you looking for in an ideal candidate? And give us a sense, if you're an applicant and you're interested in any one of your programs, what does it take to get in? Colleen?
Sure. So I think, the quantitative background is the official answer. We need to see from a quantitative lens that you're going to be ready to hit the ground running. We did move to test optional this year for the first time because of the pandemic. But because of that, we do still want to make sure that there's a quantitative rigor that we can see either through undergraduate or previous graduate level work, or potentially in your professional work, which could also very much be there if you are managing budgets or a large team. But I think the subjective piece is probably the more interesting, because for us, it's really about someone who we see as collaborative. For us and for my kind of work as the director of admission, I'm looking for a student who is internally motivated, potentially internally competitive, but not necessarily outwardly competitive, because it's that collaborative mindset that is going to be the differentiator here. In all of the range of ventures that all of us shared, it would be impossible to teach a curriculum to teach someone how to launch a stock company, but we can teach a framework so that you can take your ideas and then take that framework and really help to grow it. But to do that, in our opinion, you need to be collaborative. You need to understand how different business units function together. And you need to be able to know that sometimes your voice isn't the most important voice in the room. And so one of my favorite interview questions is, when you're not the team leader, what role do you take on? And sometimes I get an answer that's, I'm always the leader. And that's a red flag for me. And so I think it's that subjective piece, it's the collaborative piece. Those are the students who do really well, because we expect everyone that we admit will be smart academically. But it's the people who are collaborative that will really be the standouts, and the ones that we really want here.
Is entrepreneurial experience a plus for an applicant to Babson?
That's a great question. We do have a lot who highlight that. It is not a requirement, but the plus of it, I think, is that it shows a certain grit, for lack of a better word, which we do really like to see. Have you failed at something, and did you bounce back? And did that inform your future self and what you want to get out of graduate school? And so for some, that might come from a previous venture or something they're working on right now. But for some, it might be a huge project that they just were not able to get off the ground at work, and they don't want that to happen again. And so it's that grit piece, and how a student showcases that might range, but it's that skill set that's the biggest piece. And we'll glean that from the interview and from the resume generally.
Right. Now, Ruthie, do you in fact value someone who's done an entrepreneurial venture already, and even if they've failed?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. I think that we learn the most from our failures, right? So I think if somebody has had an opportunity and they've gone out on a limb and they've tried it regardless of whether they were successful or they failed, we're really looking for resilience, right? Resilience is incredibly important in our community. So, for us, when we think about who we're looking for that learning agility, we're looking for that experiential mindset, we're looking for leadership potential, right? Doesn't mean that you have to have led everything, but it does mean that we are looking for individuals who are leaders. We're also looking for, people that are really interested in diversity and equity and inclusion and that global mindset. That's also very important to us. So those are some of the things that we really look for. But our class is incredibly diverse in that we are 46% women this class. Gender parity is very important to us. We achieved 36% international students, and we had the highest representation of students of color at 28%, underrepresented minorities, and then for 41% US students of color. So for us, it is truly about working with and through diversity and really ensuring that those perspectives are, really come through in that classroom experience. So for us, it's really about that diversity and that resilience.
Great. Janice, what does an ideal candidate for your program look like to you?
Sure. Obviously, they have to be able to handle the rigor and all of that. We certainly want to know that they're capable of being employed, because they may need to be employed until they go and launch this endeavor. But there's a couple of things that probably are no surprise. Comfort with ambiguity. Hello, the world of COVID. So, you have to have an ability to be okay as it evolves and as it comes to fruition. And the other thing I'd say is a little bit of restlessness. It's interesting to me. It's obvious for those who come in to be entrepreneurs. They have this goal. They have it in their DNA, as we've said. But what's really interesting to me is those who don't come in thinking that's what they want. An executive MBA who's already well achieved, but he's got this restlessness. And next thing you know, he's decided to start a venture. So I think there's a good mix of those with that in mind and those who hadn't considered it yet.
Yeah. Having met so many applicants and so many students over the years, I have to say, I'm always impressed by the drive, the intensity, the passion, the sort of display of energy. These are people who want to get stuff done. And it's great to be shoulder to shoulder with people like that if that's who you are. You feed off that and magical things can happen. Now, Allison, what does the ideal candidate look like for IE? You're very international, obviously, and you draw from all parts and corners of the world. So what's your class profile look like, and what are you looking for?
Yeah, so in an incoming class of maybe 300 students, we have typically 75 plus nationalities represented. Only about 5% of our students actually come from Spain. The rest come from around the world. So culturally incredibly diverse. But one thing that I think is really great about IE is, as I mentioned before, is that it's also very professionally diverse. We have no one industry or sector that has a majority, and that really pushes people to think differently. And that's something that we look for in our candidates, people that want to be pushed out of their comfort zone, get out of their bubble that they've been in, and exposed to that cognitive diversity as well as that cultural diversity. We of course want people that are able to adapt to new situations, new environments. It's always a good indicator that they're going to be successful moving forward. And people who are making an intentional decision to make this change in their life, to find the gaps in their skill sets and fill those gaps. Those are I think the things that we look for the most.
Right. Great. Now there are two age-old questions involving entrepreneurship in business schools. The first question is, are entrepreneurs born, or can entrepreneurship be taught? And the second question is, Well, my goodness, if I already have a job, instead of, sorry, if I already have an idea, should I just pursue my idea and use the money that I would spend on tuition for an MBA as my seed money for my idea? So, Allison, let's start with you on these two questions. Is it even possible to teach entrepreneurship, or do you really have to be born an entrepreneur with the drive, the ambition, the insatiable desire to succeed to really be successful as an entrepreneur?
I think, you see it both ways. There are people that are born with that drive, but I can say, personally, I did the MBA at IE, not having ever considered being an entrepreneur, and started a nonprofit by the time I finished the program because of what I learned at IE. And so I can tell you from personal experience, there's, you can find both, and it can be done both ways. And in terms of, why do an MBA if you already have an idea or have started an idea? I would say most entrepreneurs, if they're honest, would say that they have some gaps in their skills, like I was saying before, and then find themselves, they might not have the resources to hire in to fill those gaps. So they need to fill those gaps themselves, especially if they're going to be able to scale their ideas. So an MBA is a perfect place to do that. And also realistically, when you're looking at investment for your idea, it gives a level of credibility to your plan, to your planning that you wouldn't necessarily maybe have otherwise.
Yep, all good answers. Janice, not to make you build on that, but let me pretend to be a young person again, which would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it? And let me pretend to have a really cool idea. And I have $50,000 in my pocket, and I want you to convince me to spend my $50,000 or whatever on your MBA instead of just pouring it into my idea and making a go of it. Convince me.
You got it, John. Okay, John, I think you have a fantastic idea. And it will take quite a bit to commercialize that idea. So it behooves you to consider the learning you would have in operations, in finance, all of the commercial aspects of making your idea legit and real. I'll even tell you about another thing we have within our MBA. It's called Founder Finders. I always say it wrong, Founder Finders. So John, you're so creative. You created this idea. What if you came to Founder Finders and said, I really need a legal or a financial person to go shoulder to shoulder with me. So don't ever forget the network and that ecosystem that's going to support your growth.
Great answer. You convinced me. I'm signing up.
Okay, fantastic.
My money's going to your program.
Class of 2021, here you go.
Ruthie, do you have a perspective on either of these two questions?
I do. I would say that first, at WashU Olin, we believe in untapped potential. And so I think when it comes to whether this is innate or something that you can learn, it's really about your desire to embrace the learning experience and to really tap into that untapped potential, right? So I think that it's a clean slate when you join, and it's really about what you want to accomplish. On the other side of it, about whether or not I should put money towards an MBA, I would say that one of the most undervalued components of education is self-development, right? We certainly know that, especially in the US, that inequality exists in education, whether your background, where you're from, your gender, your race, that opportunities aren't always equal. And so it has to be your decision and your journey. But what I will say is that it's really important for students to understand that part of the educational experience is learning how to work with people that are very different from who you are and where you grew up, right? How to work on that relationship and sustain that relationship, right? And then also to grow and develop and to understand who you are and how you contribute and how you can utilize resources at your disposal and utilize that network in order to, once again, accomplish great things. So really, I think, an MBA is just as much about, learning how things intersect and learning how to work cross-functionally as it is about really understanding how to create common ground and how to really unite people towards something pretty incredible. So I would say that's my little tidbit about things that are certainly undervalued when people think about an MBA or about a formal education. It shouldn't be undervalued.
Yeah, two really smart points. Now, Colleen, you have the misfortune of having listened to all these three before you, and I think they answered the both questions exceptionally well. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have something to add?
And wouldn't it be great if I said I disagree with all of them? No, I'd say it was
would be, actually.
so well said. But I think just to piggyback on Ruthie, I think that the difference in an MBA versus starting your own venture is that I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, their new venture is so synonymous with themselves. And it's hard to separate personal and professional. And in just launching the business, you are putting that $50,000 into the business. And in an MBA, you're leveraging the investment not only in the business development, but also in your own professional development. And that is a better bang for your buck in most cases. And all you'll get with that, with the network, with the collaboration. And, a lot of times first ventures may fail. But isn't it nice to fail in that cocoon we talked about, instead of failing when you already have employees whose livelihood is on the line? I think it's just a nice net to be able to really explore and venture and iterate versions that will be an even better version of yourself and the ultimate venture.
I like that. Earlier I had been the editor of Fast Company magazine, and when Fast Company first launched, there were a couple of important tenets that they advanced, and one was business is personal, and the other was the brand is you. And this, you just raised those two things that really resonated with me, having been the editor of Fast Company magazine years ago. I'm going to say something else too. Look, hey, if you're out there and you think you're Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, good for you. But for the mere mortals, including myself, I think learning the basics of marketing, strategy, finance, operations, personnel management, and how to motivate people, I think the opportunity to be surrounded by like-minded individuals who are all in on your success, who will be your guinea pigs on your business, who will give you money to make it happen, who may be your first customers, who may be your suppliers, and taking advantage of that network, not only when you launch, but throughout your life, has incredible value. And it's something you can't get anywhere else. And the package of support systems that schools have developed in this area is immense, as anyone who's joined us in the beginning clearly knows. Now, I want to turn to one question that I really like, because, in the absence of not being able to come to each of your campuses today, I should say that when I do get out and go to a campus, one of my favorite things to do is to have a coffee or lunch or dinner with students. And the things I sit around and ask students is this: what are the three most important things that really resonated with you, that really made a difference in your MBA experience, that you'll take away from this degree, from the opportunity that you've had to study for 1 or 2 years in an MBA program, and that will last a lifetime? What are the three resident things that Babson MBAs come away with, Colleen?
I think the first is that entrepreneurial mindset, because it really changes your lens on how you view the world. And so that's an important piece, not only for your business, but also just in their personal lives too. And it's something that really resonates with our students. And then it may sound a little cliche, but the peer and the faculty relationships are hallmark pieces of the program. And it's what our alumni always talk about, because at the end of the day, at the front, when I say from an admission side, we're looking for that collaborative piece. the students are really able to dive into that. And that's a real focus for them when they leave, really building that network and then that framework to be able to launch into their professional lives.
Great. Ruthie, three big takeaways for an Olin MBA.
Oh goodness, the pressure's on. All right, three big takeaways. I would say, of course, we have to talk about, the faculty and the curriculum. There has really been a very intentional effort to ensure that people understand, once again, how things intersect, why it matters, right? Why I need to know accounting and marketing, why those things are very important, right? So we really work hard to ensure that they understand, the importance of that interconnectedness. I would certainly say the ecosystem, to steal Janice's word from before, the ecosystem of WashU, the ecosystem of St. Louis, it really truly is a place that works in such harmony with our city and with our community and with our community members. And there is that connectivity that really exists in our community that I think really is inspiring to watch. And then lastly, of course, our students are just incredible. I mean, hands down, I couldn't leave today without giving a shout out to these students. They are bright, they are resilient, they are ambitious, and they are so thoughtful, right? So thoughtful about how they want to make an impact and how they want to change the world. So I would say those are my three things.
Those are three good things. Janice.
So I'm going to go with similar to WashU, the integration of a city like Houston into Rice. Number one diverse city over New York, which blows my mind, and a hugely business-friendly city. So both the city and Rice are committed to making this an innovation place. And ION is a big launch that has recently happened with a lot of money from Rice to create that incubator spot for that very thing. So the city and the integration of the school would be number one. Number two would be faculty as well, because the faculty speaking directly to entrepreneurship are founders. They've done it. So you've got the faculty on your discipline sides for learning your operations and your finance and all of that. Then you've got the real founders who've experienced it. And the last thing I would say is the alumni involvement, because we bring alumni back constantly for giving back what they've gotten and mentoring the next person. So that formal mentorship and the actionable alumni has been fabulous for this program.
Terrific. Allison.
First of all, there's no better place to be having a coffee and some food than Madrid. So if you were on our campus.
No kidding.
Definitely missed that. But I would say, just to echo kind of what the other ladies have said, and I think this speaks to when you're looking at programs, so much of it is about fit and the culture of the school that you're going into and making sure that that's a community that you feel connected to. Because, it is going to be your network moving forward for the rest of your life, your professional network. And so you want it to be one that you feel like you can, be a meaningful part of. And so I think for our students as well, that network, that global network that they're looking for is something that they feel like they come out of this program really valuing. And then also the, not just the network of their peers in terms of the other students, but also the network, as my other colleagues have mentioned, of the professors. At IE, all of our professors, whether it's in a econ class or a marketing class, they're all practitioners of what they teach. So you not only have the network of students that you do the program with and the alumni beyond that, but you also have the network of these professors who are out in the real world that you can draw on. And I think that those are the main things that our students come out of this program really valuing.
Terrific. Well, what a joy it's been to spend this last hour with all four of you. I'm inspired. Yeah, I started the company, but you four have inspired me to start another one. And really, what a wonderful treat it is to get a real insight into, how your schools are making a difference in young lives. I say that higher education is really important to people. It's not only for social mobility, but more importantly, to live a more fulfilled and productive life, and to meet people who will be your enduring friends through your lifetime. And I can't think of a better place to do it than any one of your 4 schools and in your MBA programs. So Allison, Janice, Ruthie, and Colleen, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. And I hope all of you out there got a really good taste of what it would be like to go and get an MBA at one of these schools, and to leave with an entrepreneurial mindset, to leave with the tools to be a really innovative and creative thinker. Not only if you start your own company, but if you go into a mainstream MBA job, or you go into a nonprofit, or you go into an early stage venture, or you go into another startup that you didn't have a part in creating. You can make a more positive difference, a more meaningful difference, if you have the skills, the frameworks to do it. So thank you all. I really appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.